The peace talks in Cuba have entered a critical phase. Negotiators are not only addressing the issue of payment to victims, but also what punishment FARC will face for its crimes. The process is called transitional justice, and human rights observers are concerned about whether FARC may receive amnesty. CCTV's Michelle Begue has insight.
Nydia Sanchez was a councilwoman from Colombia's Arauca region. In early 2000, the leftist guerrilla group, Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, known as FARC, kidnapped her and held her hostage for 15 days. During the ordeal, the FARC commander sexually assaulted her repeatedly.
My children don't know this yet. I haven't wanted to tell them anything because I don't want them to feel the hate, like the hate I have in my heart.
In Colombia, a person found guilty of rape can serve anywhere from 12 to 20 years in prison. But current peace negotiations with the FARC may make it so that crimes like the one against Nydia may go unpunished. In a final deal, the rebel group may be offered shorter sentences in exchange for laying down their weapons. In August, President Juan Manuel Santos alluded to the thorny issue of justice in the event that a peace agreement is signed.
The justice that will result from this process will not be a perfect justice, no, but it will have to be an honest justice, a justice that assures maximum satisfaction for the victims.
The specifics are still not clear. In 2012, lawmakers passed the legal framework for peace that laid down a foundation for a future transitional justice system.
The transitional justice system was invented in Latin America after the dictatorships in the Southern Cone. The reality is that you can sacrifice a certain amount of justice in order to transition to peace and democracy.
Colombia's first experience with a transitional justice was through the 2005 Justice and Peace Law. The purpose was to facilitate the demobilization of right-wing paramilitaries who wanted to give up fighting and were willing to confess their crimes in exchange for shorter jail sentences. Of the 30,000 fighters that turned in their weapons, 90% received amnesty, and the remaining 10% were given 5 to 8 year sentences if they promised to lay down their arms, confess the truth, and compensate victims. Human rights lawyers criticized the law for not doing enough to assure reparation.
Our opposition is not because we are stubborn or because we want to torpedo the process of reconciliation and justice and peace. We are saying that there has been non-fulfillment of what was promised and we can't award that.
As Colombian citizens continue to grapple with the results of the Justice and Peace Law, Colombian officials are looking at the peace process with the FARC and trying to determine how to effectively prosecute crimes against humanity without endangering a final agreement.
We have to make Colombian society understand that it doesn't matter if these guerrillas are good or bad, if they're deserving or not of peace. What is fundamental is to understand that only a peace agreement is going to permit that we close those vulnerabilities that allow for this violence to reproduce. So this process needs to be seen more in favor of the people that are excluded from development because of the war than as a favorable process for the guerrilla.
The FARC has said they have not agreed to any type of transitional justice, and they have only negotiated the right to run for political office if they demobilize and reintegrate into civilian life. This position by the rebel group has been highly criticized. But Carlos Villamil, the director of transitional justice in the Attorney General's office, says Colombians need to understand the bigger picture.
Hay que preguntarse qué genera más temor.
I think we need to ask ourselves what generates more fear, having participants of the armed conflict continuing to generate violence, kidnapping, and threats, or participants of the armed conflict, unarmed, sitting in front of judges and magistrates and authorities, telling the truth without a weapon, and with the exception of reincorporating themselves into civilian life.
For Nydia Sanchez, the wounds of the armed conflict still haven't healed, but the prospect of peace is something to look forward to.
As for a peace process, we want it to happen soon. The victims need this to end. We cannot wait our whole lives for peace, and having those men in jail will not solve all of our economic and social problems.
A heartfelt sentiment from a victim in this conflict who understands the price of peace. Michelle Begue, CCTV, Colombia.